And it appears that we are now live, and I am transmitting. Hello, critics. Let me just verify this. I'm waiting for, there's always a little slight delay. And, okay, good. There we go. We have sound. Yes, we do. Excellent. Live from Denver, it is Friday night. Hey, critics. Welcome to Critical Conversations, the show where you guys and me get to talk. Now, unfortunately, as you can see, I did not get my soundboard back yet from Rodecaster. And I am yet doing a show because I wanted to connect with you guys. Mel is not here this week, and that is because she has fallen ill just today. She woke up a little sick today and is not feeling well. But the good news for you guys on that is we were not actually going to do a show tonight. Because she's sick, our plans changed tonight, and so here I am. So I think that because Mel is totally fine, she's just getting, it's just there's here in Denver, I'm reading about the fact that we are getting quite a few flus and bugs and things passing around right now. We did have a home test. We did check, and it does not appear to be COVID. So we are very happy about that. But there's various flus and things passing around. So anyway, we will hope that that she will come out okay there. So yes, the soundboard is still in the shop, guys. So I will be, that's where the rock and music and everything comes from too, is that little board that I have. It's a very multi-purpose, multi-function, wonderful piece of equipment. And it's also the thing that allows me to be able to speak with you guys because I can plug my phone into it and integrate all of those together into the stream. So they are a bit backed up out there. I have actually been calling and trying to get them to get it back to me as quickly as possible, but they've been a little backed up out there or something, I guess. Anyway, no, I cannot just repair the board myself, Bud. Thank you for asking. So anyway, that's the ups and downs on that. And illness has been back and forth with us a bit. When you live the life of the immunocompromised, then that's a problem. That's a thing that comes up from time to time. So anyway, okay, guys. So thank you very much for your commentary here. And I see that we are joined from England, Missouri, and other places all over. But what I wanted to do is I thought, well, look, I want to at least put myself here for you guys, and we can do like similar to when I do a live critical Q&A where I can interact with you guys in the comments, because I wanted to do this show this week to interact with you. I really do want your feedback now. I have been talking for the last couple weeks and interviewing people, The Insider, Catherine Olson. I hope you guys have been watching these shows because they have been revealing very current information about what's going on in Scientology and that bubble world that we're always kind of going on and on about. And this year is my year of escape. It's my year of going to be my 10-year anniversary of getting out of Scientology. And that's a while. A lot of things have changed in that world since I was there. And so much so that one of the things Catherine was here today, and we were filming the part 3 of the interview that I did with her. Part 2 will go up tomorrow, and you guys will see part 3 next week. But we were, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at some of the comments as I'm going here. Yes, I will definitely do that, Red Pill. And you saw Catherine's interview with Aaron. Anyway, we were going over a lot of stuff here, and so much stuff that's going on in Scientology has changed and morphed and developed from when I was in a decade ago, that it's almost in some ways unrecognizable to me, and in other ways very hard to predict now. I have a great deal of knowledge of what L. Ron Hubbard wrote and said in his lectures, and that's the original basis of Dianetics and Scientology, is all the L. Ron Hubbard's works. And if you go talk to Scientologists, they'll tell you it still is. But given the massive changes that we've talked about in the last couple weeks, and the credit card thing, and the COVID response, and the fact that orgs were closed, and that you can go around to various Scientology churches and be hard pressed to even find all of those red volumes, all the bulletins, the packs of all of L. Ron Hubbard's writings, and the packs of all of L. Ron Hubbard's policies. All of these have changed and disappeared in some ways over the years. And so they're still doing, of course, the same things that they've been doing with auditing and with their goofy training. But the policy changes and the management structure and the strategies, or the what they're doing as an organization, as a movement, has been very hard to figure out in some ways, because it's been so randomly chaotic. It's really been quite crazy. And the word now coming out about these various problems that Scientology has been experiencing over the last few years has really has kind of brought a picture into development, or into focus here, that indicates that it seems Scientology is having a pretty rough time right now. And I do not want to be overly optimistic about this and say, well, it's on its way out fully now. We can say for sure 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it's out of here, right? We can't say that. And I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that the acceleration of the decline that I have fully expected. See, it's kind of like, you can know that an organization or a group or practice or whatever is kind of got its own self-destruction in its DNA. There's lots and lots of groups that act very self-destructively, and you can see they're eventually going to do themselves out of an existence. They're going to collapse, they're going to fall apart. It's all resting on the shoulders of a few people. And once those people are gone, or if they don't, or something else happens, or the leadership changes, whatever, it's going to collapse, right? It's not long for this world, but you don't know, right, when or how or why or under what context will that final destruction happen. You just know somehow, some way, this thing ain't got legs. And that's how I've been looking at the Church of Scientology ever since I got out and started making my first videos about it. I was saying right from the get-go, destruction is in its DNA. So some of the first things I said about it. But how does it fall apart? How long does it take? Is it like the Muggletonians, where it takes 100 years for the damn thing to fall apart, or 2 or 3 even? I'll have to look that one up. But it is. But as you guys are commenting here very correctly, right? Miscavige has been squirreling the tech since the day he took over. That's right, Stephanie. And so where do we think it's going? I have given you guys a lot of information over the last couple weeks, including, and then of course there was the Tom Cruise episode, which I also hope you guys saw, where we got to break down what all the Scientologists who are in that OT band, who go in session every day, 5 times a day, what are they up to? What are they doing, right? And clearly they're on a collision course with insanity. I mean, what they're doing is crazy making, the OT auditing. So with all of this kind of going on, I guess what I was sort of wanting to do this week was sort of see what you guys were thinking about all of this. Do you think that it's, there's a famous drill or procedure in Scientology where you have to call off on an e-meter orders of magnitude of time to find out how long ago something happened. And I always enjoy kind of running through that little drill because it's kind of fun. But anyway, do you think, in terms of how long will Scientology be around? Are we talking an order of magnitude of days, weeks, months, years, tens of years, hundreds of years, thousands of years? how long do we think this thing is going to go, right? And for what reasons? What are you guys seeing in this? Because I know that my perspective is simply mine, and it's not necessarily considering all the different points of view or perspectives on this. So anyway, so that was kind of what I was thinking we might talk about a little bit this week. Now let me take a look at some of these comments and see. Yeah, David Brown says, might not be much bigger than independent Scientology in 15 years or so, but it won't go away just because of the amount of money they have and the existence of the Sea Org. And I agree with you. I think I think the fact that the Sea Org exists, that it's apparently, you know, I was asking Catherine about this because she was at one time privy to the exact numbers of people who were on staff and in the Sea Org all over the world. And so I talked to her about this, and she agreed that, you know, that kind of rough estimate that we throw around of about 4,000 or 5,000. You know, I tend now toward around 4,000, I think, but, you know, somewhere around that figure is about how many Sea Org members there are. And again, very, very rough estimate. Maybe that's about how many staff there are when we look at, you know, the staff who work in the city level churches. But I think 5,000 is a high number for that. I don't think there actually are that many staff. I think the city level churches are populated by probably about 3,000 people at this point. Again, these are just total guesstimates, but those are my thoughts on that. So we could be looking at, you know, 7,000 to 10,000 professional Scientologists worldwide between the Sea Org and between the city level churches. Yeah, and those are bigger numbers than a lot of other cults that are around, but it's minuscule compared to groups like the Mormons or the Moonies or even the JWs, who truly number in the millions of people. So we are talking about a group that is, at its core, is a very small group, you know, relatively speaking. Yet it doesn't really matter how few people it is. It's how hardcore they are, how dedicated they are, right? How long they want to keep the thing going. That will determine how long does it keep going. And here we're referring, of course, to corporate Scientology rather than independent Scientology. Oh, that will be interesting, Noam, saying you mentioned there that the census data from England and Australia is going to be released next month. I will definitely be looking with curiosity at the results of that to see how many people are self-reporting as Scientologists in those regions. And, of course, I'm sure we'll probably have some article on Tony Ortega's blog about that as well. Okay, now Preacher 1138 is asking, is Miscavige making all church members get the COVID vaccine or just staff and Sea Org? Also, are anti-vaxxers in the church now thinking that Miscavige has betrayed them? Okay, so as far as I know, Miscavige has not called for a mandatory vaccination of all public. He has, it was ordered that the Sea Org get vaccinated. I don't know that that order went down to the staff members, you know, here in Denver. They're not Sea Org. So I don't know about them, but I do know that on the Sea Org bases, those folks are all vaccinated. And Miscavige is definitely betraying Scientologists with the anti-vaxxers who are in the church. And the interesting and encouraging information about that from Insider and seemingly verified by Catherine from her observations, and as well as other observations I have that I can't tell you the source of, it appears that even as high as a third of the existing Scientology population, at least in the United States, are full board on this QAnon train, and that a great many more Scientologists are actually fully in that conspiracy mindset. So Miscavige hinting at or pushing for vaccines or compliance with COVID regulations and restrictions and all of that over the last couple of years has infuriated those people. And this was the sort of tragic comedy of that I just couldn't help but laugh at, that the very conspiracy theories that Scientology propagates within its world from L. Ron Hubbard and from 9/11 truthers and from QAnon, these things all merge very, very well in the Scientology mindset. that would be a source of schism, that would be a source of people going, well, I'm not coming in anymore, because the church is now sort of pushing this agenda that is a government sponsored and in agreement with the dark nefarious forces of the conspiracies, right? So here you have a bunch of Scientology conspiracy theorists who are like, I'm not getting vaxxed, I'm not wearing gloves, I'm not wearing a mask, I'm not cleaning up with Decon 7, I'm not doing any of that crap. And apparently it's infuriated quite a few Scientologists. So we'll see. We'll see what comes with that. Let me just kind of catch up here. Huh. Interesting. Interesting, X-Sign. And he says somebody who used to write him pretty regularly has now stopped writing, and that might be a good sign. Certainly, for sure. Oh my God, yeah, right, David? That whole Risa, still funny that Risa Aslan did a full TV episode trying to say that independent Scientology could be a big thing when they can't fill a hall. That is exactly right. And it will be interesting, though, how if this whole thing does, accelerate in its schisming, and it's not to say that it will. We really don't know yet. But the information to hand certainly seems to indicate that there are real cracks in the foundation of this thing. So if that's true, then we will absolutely predictably see an increase in the number of independent Scientologists around the world, at least for a short term, because a bunch of people would migrate via independent Scientology. They would definitely take some time to undo and unwind the whole Scientology belief set. And hopefully through the process of being exposed to Aaron's videos and Tony's blog and Karen and everybody else and Scientology in the aftermath and, and all of that stuff, they can kind of come around to seeing that what they were involved in really wasn't that hot after all. Yeah, and this idea that Tom Cruise is going to be the one taking over is, I'm going to push back on that idea. I hear it and see it talked about often, but I just don't see that as a reality. Tom Cruise is not a Sea Org member. He's an honorary Sea Org member, but his power really comes from Miscavige in that world. Without Miscavige as his best bud and basically enforcer, Cruise is sort of left adrift in the Scientology world. It is only because David Miscavige backs his plays every single time that Cruise gets away with the nonsense that he does. Not only the slave labor and the nonsense with him and his personal life, but also enforcing when he's trouncing around at Flag. He's the cock of the walk, and if people don't practically salute him and call him sir, Tom Cruise demands to be called sir by Sea Org members. Right? So that whole thing is encouraged by and enforced by David Miscavige. So if Cruise were to try to make some move or take over, he's going to have to go through some kind of proving ground process. And if you think Miscavige doesn't know what the hell he's doing, I mean, it would just be anyway. I don't know. I don't think it'll happen, but I should want it to, because Cruise would implode the place even faster. I mean, it would really be quite something. Okay. Yes, exactly. We know the gloves are definitely unnecessary. Oh, boy. Oh, and Red Pill. Yes. What was your question earlier? Please put it down here again. I'm going forward through the comments here. So please put your question here again, and I will absolutely take a look at it. Let's see here. Oh, that's right, Stephanie. That's right. There was a story about there was an anecdote about David Miscavige making people call his dog, his beagle, sir. That's right. Yeah, not exactly the cool thing that people think it is. All right. Yeah, I talked about Tom Cruise quite a bit a couple weeks ago, Mystery Cook, so you might want to check that show out. Cruise's career has been very, very well managed by people who were significantly smarter and more savvy than him when it came to the industry. And Tom Cruise's narcissism and ego outdo his ability to create good works. And That's what I have to say about that. So yeah, does Tom Cruise have Sea Org members on set? Well, he has Sea Org members in his entourage. He has them in his personal life. So do they follow him around everywhere he goes, including on set? I can't say. I don't know. But are they infiltrated into his life in a way that they could not be extricated easily? Yes, that much is absolutely true. He certainly has Scientology handlers or, people who are networked into his life who keep an eye on him and report to David Miscavige what's up. That much is absolutely the case. Okay, yes, here we go. Red Pill, thank you for that question. How would you have responded to the COVID stuff when you were in the Sea Org and management as related to what the insider said in your recent interview? Great question. And let me think about this for a second, because of course, if I was in that Sea Org environment, I would have been forced to comply, right? I would have gotten vaccinated. I have never been, ever been anti-vax. Even in the depths of my conspiracy theory, one of the things that sort of, was like, what the hell, is when Alex Jones was encouraging people to not get vaccinated for a flu shot. This, I think, back in 2008 or 9 or whatever, and he was talking about FEMA camps and, how these, there was I think it was the H1N1, or there was some kind of nationwide virus situation, not nearly anything like COVID, but it was something going around. And Alex Jones was saying that the vaccine it was a government, chip and all this crap. And I thought Alex Jones was actually being completely destructive there. I was like, dude, you are out of your fucking mind that you're telling people to not get vaccinated. I grew up, my mom was a nurse growing up, right? And pediatric nurse, no less. So the whole concept of vaccines, getting vaccinated, taking care of yourself when it came to, medical stuff, was always there for me. And so none of the conspiracy stuff undid that. So I would have been happy to and been pro-vaccine, even in a Scientology conspiracy mindset. I had those things reconciled. As far as the rest of the COVID restrictions and stuff, I am positive that most of the Sea Org members are probably exactly like Catherine when she describes how they would just, they just roll their eyes at some of this stuff. It's like, come on, this is ridiculous. This is so stupid how we have to do all this, wearing gloves, this kind of crap, right? But I can say that only because I know everything that was released as it was coming during the COVID days. The fact is that we were told by the insider that the PAC base guys were in such an information bubble that they thought COVID was actually like ravaging the land like some kind of zombie apocalypse. And had I been in that mindset and been stuck there on PAC base, I'm pretty sure I would have been extremely curious about what was going on in the outside world and would have done everything I could have to try to find out as much information as I could. I've always been that guy who's trying to find out. But I am quite sure that I would have gone along with what was going on in the environment, because I really wouldn't have had much of a choice. And when I was a Sea Org member, I was compliant. I was passive-aggressively non-compliant from time to time. But under these COVID restrictions, there is no passive-aggressive resistance. I mean, it's as we've outlined, it's been pretty hardcore on what has been expected of the Sea Org members and the Scientologists. So I love the back and forth on Cruise and his career and all that. He's not a bad man. Mystery Cook, you know nothing about Tom Cruise's personal life. He is a bad man. Seriously, he is a bad person. Tom Cruise, okay, let me tell you why. When I was still in Scientology, I saw a report pass my plate one day that I wasn't supposed to see from Tom Cruise's niece about how she had been kicked out of the family because she had kissed a boy on Tom Cruise's property. She was at his house one day visiting, and she had some boyfriend there, and Tom was like, and Tom is very extremist in his views about sex. He takes all the Sea Org stuff and puts it into his personal life, which means no premarital sex or heavy petting or this kind of thing. And he would enforce this on his family members, including his niece. So this happens, and she gets booted, exiled by Tom Cruise out of the family. She is kicked across the country, has to go live over in St. Louis, with a Scientologist who was not connected, who was connected with the family friend, but was not a family member. And it took her 2 years, 2 years to get back in Tom's good graces through hundreds of hours of amends to Tom Cruise personally and the family for her treasonous behavior. This is what Tom Cruise does to his own family. We can also, of course, look at the Going Clear movie, the documentary, which I encourage you to see, which talks about the slave labor that Tom Cruise personally took advantage of when he had Sea Org members renovating his properties for no cost, for the cost of the materials. Renovated his SUV, his airport hangar, his house. Tom Cruise is a very weird guy. And I kind of wish that we could I really, 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 really wish we had some behind the scenes, but we don't. But if you took Homelander from The Boys, okay, and you start looking at that guy as like who Tom Cruise really is, you'd really be nailing it a lot closer to reality than people think from all the stage managed stuff that you see of him, and the sort of testimonials that come out of fellow actors around him. It's too weird. It's too bizarre how gushing everybody who's ever connected with him seems to be. And actually, I should say it's not everybody who's connected with him, but certain figures who get around him just gush and gush and gush and gush to an exaggerated sense. And I look at that, and my little, coercive control senses start going off with that, because I know what Tom Cruise's actual personality is, and it's not a nice guy. That is not who Tom Cruise is. So anyway, that's what I have to say about that. Yes, Mystery Cook, I do know it's true because I knew the girl. Okay. Yes, I know it's true. Yes. Okay. He's a bad man. Yes, Mystery Cook, you're right. Everybody's at fault there. So what? That does not lessen Tom Cruise's greed or avarice. All right. So, yes. Moving on here. There is the Deep. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. Leah was interested in finding out about this. The Boys also feature a storyline from season 2, and now they're in season 3, where one of the superheroes got involved in a cult that was absolutely, positively, no question about it, modeled after Scientology. I mean, almost word for word. They didn't use the Scientology language. They managed to walk around it. But all of the trappings of Celebrity Center and the control and the management of this particular superhero who was known as the Deep. Anyway, so that whole storyline happens in season 2. And now season 3, he's exposing the cult, just like Leah Remini. And in fact, they name drop Leah on the show. So I thought she'd be amused by that. Anyway, so yeah, I thought that was hilarious. Okay, question here. Have you thought about looping a large number of your shows to form a 24/7 stream broadcast? No, I have not thought about that. That sounds like way too much work. I just like talking to you guys live. I don't know. I'll have to. Yeah, I don't have any plans to do anything like that. Yes, Robert, I actually very much enjoy the emotional complexity of The Boys as well. I was going to say it was funny to me because it occurred to me today that the Deep, the character the Deep, who is this Aquaman equivalent, right, is actually the shallowest character on the show. He's quite good. Anyway, yeah. Yes, there are known images, Hinesh, of David Miscavige and LRH together. There was a period of time in the late 1970s when David Miscavige worked directly under L. Ron Hubbard, and in fact was a cameraman who was shooting films that L. Ron Hubbard was directing out in the desert of California. They had retreated out there, the Sea Org had, and they had set up a where is now the gold base out in Hemet, out in San Jacinto. Anyway, there are pictures of Miscavige and Hubbard together there. Okay. So, moving right along here. Good stuff. Yeah. Tom Cruise is a Scientology version of Zoolander. I like that. Yeah, exactly, Robert. It was awesome. I wonder, Angel Hugger, whether Miscavige knows about the boys. Pretty sure it would have come up on some kind of media alert. OSA keeps track of, anti-Scientology or critical of Scientology kind of stuff. And I think that connection is way too close. And if they didn't get the point in season 2, they're certainly getting it in season 3. How much of an issue are they going to make out of it, or what are they going to try to do about it? Probably nothing. I don't think they have the personnel or the resources for it at this point. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Hey Hun. Thank you very much for that connection with Jimmy Savile, because I think that, or Savile or Savile, or however you say his name, I think that is an extremely appropriate comparison. I don't, I say that as though I don't think Tom Cruise is a child molester, but as far as this, this person, this celebrity who is universally revered, worshipped, loved, gushed over, interacts with royalty, mingles, mixes elbows with, the glitterati and celebrity of the planet. And then is found out to be, this extremely malicious, evil child molester. Well, I'm telling you, that kind of material is available from Tom Cruise. I'm not saying he's a child molester. I'm not saying that. I am saying that there is dark material in Tom Cruise's personal life that I am quite sure could be exposed at some point, and probably will. But I'm not making any specific allegation there. I want to be super clear about that, because I don't know what it is. I just know that personality type and the empowerment and the capability of abuse that Tom Cruise enjoys is way too much for him to not take advantage of it to an exaggerated sense. That's my sort of broad judgment that I pass on Tom Cruise there. It's more sort of first principles kind of thinking. It's like if you're looking at a megalomaniac, narcissist, abuser, right, who we know already is abusive to his family, who we know already is willing to abuse and engage in human rights violations against Sea Org members, what else is he capable of? Well, is that the limit? I doubt it. That's my logic and reasoning on that. All right, so... Hinesh, I will tell you to actually, on Tommy Davis, you will find up-to-date, well, not up-to-date, but you will find the most current information you can about Tommy Davis on Tony Ortega's blog. He has gone to great depths to explain Tommy Davis's departure from what Tommy's been up to since his departure from the Sea Org. And he's still very much connected. He is not speaking out. His family are Scientologists, his mom and dad. And so he's second generation. And he has since divorced his Sea Org wife, Jessica Feshbach, and I think he's remarried somebody who looks like a supermodel. And I think he's doing some kind of high-end business work of some kind. I don't know what. I don't keep track of him that closely. I don't really think Tommy Davis is worth the time of day, to be honest, right? If he wants to have a change of heart and start speaking up, I will be all ears. But Tommy Davis is just another, shill for Scientology, even now. It's pretty sad. Yes, exactly, Stephanie. We need to chip away at it a little at a time. I actually tend to think that that's probably how this is going to go, until we finally get to the chip that really matters and the whole thing comes crashing. But, what is that? What will it be? How will it play out? That is the impossible prediction. But are you guys encouraged at all right now by the news that's coming out of this and what how badly they've bungled COVID, how badly they bungled this credit card fraud that they were engaged in from 2014 to 2019 with Chase and Navy Credit and these other companies, losing members through the conspiracy crap, removing Hubbard out of the orgs, his written works. Not allowing the orgs to actually deliver their purification rundowns, or their objectives co-audits, which are low-level, very popular services. They can't deliver those, haven't been for the last 2 years. So my question is, how do they keep going? I really wonder. I mean, it's just, there must be so much inertia keeping this thing moving forward, because there is nothing really going on in Scientology that is exciting or interesting or magnetic to people. I really wonder how they're just continuing at all. I really am. But I know that groups have this inertia, and they just kind of keep going no matter what. Timberwolf, good question. You're asking, do you think Sea Org people are watching you and or this stream? And if so, could they cause you harm? Yes, I do believe that my streams are watched or looked at probably after the fact. I don't think there's any Sea Org member watching right this second. But there is a guy at OSA, apparently, who watches all this crap and, all of our stuff. And apparently he's a very angry man. Catherine was dishing on him. And I doubt that there's only one guy looking at all the stuff. But, there's a very few people. And I don't know if all of my material rates for review by OSA at this point, because I've put out so much content, and not all of it is necessarily directly related to Scientology and that sort of thing. But I am not afraid of the Church of Scientology at this point. They still have resources and the ability to cause me a great deal of trouble if they wanted to. But I just don't think they're going to. I don't think I'm interesting enough to them. And I am completely okay with that. I am not here to rile up Scientology. I'm here to help people. And I don't care whether Scientology, it's not any badge of honor or rank for me at this point to be, to have trouble from Scientology or other groups for that matter. But because of the nature of the work that I do, it's always a bit of a danger. And I have to be mindful of that. So that's why I'm always kind of, keeping my eyes open. All right. Good. So let's see what else we got here. You're definitely watching, Chris. Thanks, Stephanie. Yes, exactly. If the tax exemption could get revoked, that would be cataclysmic for Scientology. Absolutely. It would be huge. And, but that's probably some time away, at least according to all the data we have that we can operate on right now. So we'll have to see how that works out. Gurroar, great question. What do you predict might be the next real nail in the coffin for Scientology? I'm going to say Danny Masterson. I'm going to say that the trial, because I believe it's coming up in October now. It's been rescheduled from August to October, according to Tony Ortega's reporting. And that is going to be a very public trial. It is going to be very loud, and Scientology is absolutely going to be featured as part of that trial, because the women that he allegedly assaulted, I think definitely assaulted, were Scientologists, and the Church of Scientology helped engage in covering up and trying to keep Danny Masterson safe from prosecution from those women, his victims. I think that's going to come out. I think that's going to be part of it. But I do not for 1 second believe that any Sea Org members or David Miscavige or the Church of Scientology are in any way going to be indicted by anything that happens in the trial. But I think that there will be a bit of trial by public. I think the media is going to get into that and make those connections, certainly. And Scientology's good name will once again be dragged through the mud by Danny Masterson, one of its most prominent members, who happens to be a sexual predator. So, that would, yes, thank you, Timberwolf. Yes, thank you, Gnome. Yes, I'm sure they are looking at that. Okay, let's see here. Oh, that's interesting. Flame. Cool. All right, you guys. Let's see here. What? Well, that would be great, X-Cyan, if we could get a Leah Remini style investigation of the COVID debacle and other Scientology and Theta. Yeah, I mean, if what we're talking about lately on this blog, on this channel, and on Tony's blog, and wherever else these things are getting picked up, and hopefully this information is getting picked up somewhere. I mean, that's why I'm putting it out here. is so that, Tracy McManus and maybe other media people could pick up on this and start looking into it and talking about it. I hope that would be nice. Okay. All right. Let's see what else we got going on here. Yeah, exactly. It'll be interesting to see how this trial plays out. Right now, the Church of Scientology is sort of standing behind Masterson and supporting him, and his family is supporting him. And remember that Danny Masterson does not live in a vacuum. His entire family, his sister, his mother, his other relations, and his sort of inner circle are hardcore or Scientology friendly, right? I don't think you're going to find Ashton Kutcher or Mia Kunis talking trash about Scientology, because they're all connected through the 70s show and stuff. And even after, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, Laura Prepon has left Scientology, publicly has said so, but she ain't dishing on Scientology. She's not saying a damn word about it. And I don't know if she still supports Danny Masterson as a person or not. Hasn't really said anything one way or the other there. But there is a lot of connections, is the point I'm trying to make, around Danny Masterson that we don't all necessarily see or are super visible to us. So it's not necessarily an easy task for Scientology to decide to throw Danny Masterson under the bus, right? What if his whole family sides with him? Well, we're talking about powerful people, right? People who have nice, good roles with lots of money coming in and influence in the Hollywood communities. So, so they don't necessarily, it's not in their best interest to throw Danny Masterson under the bus. But if it looks like he's going to become a legal liability and expose Scientology to something horrible, or it appears it's going in that direction, Miscavige might get really nervous, right? Might get really cold feet about this whole idea of supporting Masterson and might pull the plug on that. And wouldn't that be interesting if Scientology decided to start dishing turned over evidence, something like that? Wow. Wouldn't that be interesting? Make them out to look like maybe they might, there might be some bizarre logic there where even that they might spin that they could be seen as the good guys if they were to give over evidence of his guilt or something. I don't know. Who knows how this thing could play out. But you're absolutely right, X-Cyan, that delay is absolutely Masterson's tactic right now. It's the only game play he's got, because he is going to trial, and he has been indicted in criminal charges, and he is going to be made to face those charges. So he's doing everything he can to delay the crap out of that. But, it's just going to keep going. Yeah, exactly. It is definitely documented and clear that Danny Masterson is a Scientologist, and he did do major services in Scientology. It's undeniable. There's no way they're ever going to get out of that. But they could try, like they do with everybody they throw under the bus, they could very easily try to rewrite that history and say that Danny Masterson was never a good Scientologist and start highlighting all of the bad things he did as a Scientologist, like the drug parties and the drinking and the partying and the sex and all of that stuff, right? He was known as a wild child when he already, without any of these charges. He was not a very good Scientologist as far as that goes. But, he made an awful lot of public appearances at the Celebrity Center and was involved in enough Scientology events that they're going to have some explaining to do if they try to throw him under the bus. Okay. Oh, good question, Hinesh. She's asking here if David Miscavige has only been seen in public at openings and a few old pictures with Tom at events. What are the chances of seeing him face the public again in the future? Will he hide forever? Yes, he will. Yeah, absolutely, Hinesh. Sorry. He is, as exactly as Stephanie is saying there, he is a coward and he is terrified of going to prison, and he does stay hidden. David Miscavige is a craven little man. I love saying that publicly. I just love trashing the guy, right? Because there's really nothing he can do about it. He is this little dictator, tyrant, midget extraordinaire who, thinks he has this incredible power base, but he is the leader of this dying religious movement that he and his dumbass ideas are taking right over a cliff. So, screw this guy. But as far as him being seen in public and stuff, there is no good reason for him to come out publicly in any way, for him to go face the media, face the press, do anything like that, take questions in any kind of public venue. There is no positive upside to him doing that as far as he is concerned. So, no, I will say as absolutely as I can, with as much certainty as I could put into an answer of this kind. I will say that there is no chance that David Miscavige makes public appearances, goes on Oprah, goes on Nightline again, tries to come out and explain Scientology to the general public, or in any way acts like the actual leader of a religious movement in the public eye or public forum. He doesn't need any of that. He is not looking for and does not need the approval of the world at large. He has a very closed membership of people who adore him and admire him, although that number appears to be shrinking quite quickly at this time. But he still has that base. And, dare I say, like Trump's base or other people's bases, they're diehard, right? They are all in. They're in it to win it, and they're, diehards. So he will always kind of have something to fall back on. Remember, by the way, just in terms of historical precedents here, and now I'm even arguing against myself. I'm constantly thinking about this, but Scientology started and for many years existed as a group of just a few hundred people through the 1950s. It grew pretty quickly in the late 50s, but in the early times, after Dianetics tanked twice, Hubbard was down to like a couple hundred people. And when he was giving his advanced clinical courses and congresses and lecture series back in the 50s, there were like 30 people showing up. It was small and it built up. So this could come down to something very, very tiny and build back up again, too. We have to keep that kind of scenario in mind when we think about what could happen to Scientology. Okay. Timberwolf is asking about Marty Rathbun as being such a scary person. What's he up to these days? I have no idea. Marty Rathbun disconnected from everyone years ago. And then he started popping out with these clearly Scientology-produced videos trashing me, Tony, Leah, Mike, anybody and everybody who had something critical to say about Scientology. Marty is a jerk, basically, and he went for it. He thought he was going to be sort of this kingpin in the independent field. That didn't really play out. He thought he was going to take on Miscavige directly with this legal case in his wife's name. That didn't work out. And then he disappeared with his tail between his legs. And as far as I'm concerned, the guy is, a bit of a coward. Sight unseen, data unknown, and Marty Rathbun having himself disconnected from everybody. What other conclusion am I supposed to come to, right? Oh, he was paid off. Cowardly. Oh, he, was blackmailed. Okay. He was in a good position. He was in a right position. He was in a place where he was actually taking the fight to Scientology, and then he folded. And that's the act of a coward. If you're going to start it, finish it. That's what I have to say about Marty at this point. I'm not usually that mean-spirited in that direction, but, the guy kind of, at this point now, knowing everything I know and having been through everything I've been through, I just don't think the guy has any legs to stand on or excuse. That's certainly not good enough for me. Unless he wants to, of course, call me and tell me how wrong I am and what the real truth of the matter is. I'd be willing to hear that. All right. Good question. Somewhat Unbiased Talks. What advice would you give to people to help somebody who's starting to get radicalized into a destructive cult? I would say the advice I would give to to anybody who's connected to somebody who's getting radicalized would be do anything and everything you can within reason and your power to influence that person to spend as little time as possible in that direction and as much time as you can reinforcing or talking about or engaging in activities that are pre-radicalization things or activities. In other words, get the person the hell away from that as much as you possibly can. If that is impossible, do everything you can to try to maintain communication with the person. Don't let them consider you a toxic person. Don't let them shut you out of their life. Do everything you can to keep a relationship going of some kind, because you might end up being that person's lifeline if they do go down the radicalization rabbit hole and eventually come back out. You might be the person who could actually extricate them from that situation. If they ignore you now, it's not all over. They could circle back around. But if you can help or keep them, time-wise, I'm just saying strictly just from pure time, do whatever you could, to do that. But do not in any way, the thing that is super, super important about this, and by the way, we go over this with Catherine this week in the podcast, this week and next week. You'll see, especially in part 3, you'll see us talk about this in some detail, that it is super important that you not antagonize or piss off or upset that person by talking, anti-cult, anti-radicalization type stuff at them. You leave that to the professionals, all right? And if you're going to stage an intervention or something, get professionals involved in that. But in terms of friends and family, just do what you can to maintain the relationship and try to say and do things or ask questions that encourage their pre-radicalization personality, you could say, to come to the surface as often as possible, right? If the person, for example, is a Marvel fan or something, talk Marvel movies with them, talk comic books. Don't talk about the thing that's radicalizing them. Talk about this other stuff. If they're big, fans of something else, talk about that or talk about their interests or, that kind of thing. Keep it real. Keep it alive with the person. That's fundamentally, that's the best advice I can give in this format. Oh, yeah, Jonathan, I do. We miss 7 too. We'll see. We do have plans, by the way, of getting another pet, maybe a dog. We're thinking rather than a cat, but it's still future, still months away. I have to prep the backyard and get things set up so that we can have a pet. So that's kind of what's happening there. All right. Interesting question you're asking, Gurroar. If David Miscavige was subpoenaed to court with no other legal recourse, do you think he'd actually show up, or would he simply go underground like LRH? I think it would depend on the case and how much legal exposure he is facing. Right? Yeah, that'd be interesting. But I think it would depend on the context or the situation as to whether he'd show up or not, right? And whether he thought he could talk his way through it or talk his way out of it or not. How much prep can he do, and could he do enough prep and figure it out his way to kind of, not have to answer the tough questions, not have to deal with any kind of legal exposure in any direction other than what he wants. And if he could not control that, if he could not deal with that or handle that so that it was going to be to his advantage, I really do wonder if he would show up or not, right? Again, it would also have to weigh the consequences of not showing up. What would that mean? Would they come get him? Would he end up in jail that way? Would he go on the run? Wow. Tough one. Yes, I am absolutely positive, Jamie, for real, that Miscavige has money hidden in offshore accounts. Yeah. It is super hard to do, by the way. So it doesn't have to be hidden in offshore accounts in his name or something, right? Miscavige has access to or control over all of the assets of Scientology. So, everywhere he goes, anywhere in the world, he can go to a Scientology church or base and take all their money. And of course, he's going to have full access to all of the Sea Org reserves and International Association of Scientology membership money and all the building fund money. He's got full access to all of that. So, anywhere he goes, he's pretty in clover as far as money goes. He's not wanting for anything, and it would take federal, criminal kind of intervention, shutting down accounts and stuff like that. And let's make no mistake, I am absolutely sure that if the IRS or the feds or the government wanted to find out where he had money and how much he had and where it was all stashed, they'd probably be able to get to that information sooner than later. If a serious investigation or a serious case was launched, I don't think Miscavige would have the ability to go to ground necessarily very easily. Maybe not as easily as you might think. So we'd see. We have to see how that would factor into it. What's that now with? Yes. Thank you guys for that. I hear you. Okay, somewhat unbiased talks. Why don't you write me and let's talk about it, right? Let's have an email correspondence. You can write me at askchrisshelton@gmail.com. And maybe, I am not going to claim that I've got any kind of professional expertise in de-radicalizing somebody, through emails. But if maybe I can get some more specifics or details from you about it, maybe I can, give you some advice. All right, guys. Thank you very much for the likes and all that. Awesome. Okay, good point, Angel Hugger. I can do that. I can see about turning that into a clip. And there are other clips on my channel, and that Critical Clips channel, about that stuff, about how to deal with somebody when they're getting into a situation, you could say. All right. I think we're going to move toward wrapping up now. We've been going for about an hour. You guys have asked great questions. I think we've covered a lot of really good territory. I hope that the show has been interesting and informative and educational for y'all. And you bet I'm going to pick up the critical thinking cards as though I would forget. Silly. All right. I do not have a quote from Mel today. She has really been under, and so she did not pull a quote from today. Oh, thank you, Hey Huns. Really appreciate that. And you're really doing the work out there in the UK, staying up so late, so I really appreciate that. All right, here comes the critical thinking card for the week. I have randomly selected self-serving bias. Okay, this is a bias. This deck of cards is critical thinking cards about logical fallacies and cognitive biases, right? Ways that we filter information or don't see the world the way we should. And a self-serving bias, you believe your failures are due to external factors, yet you're personally responsible for your successes. Scientology in a nutshell. Every single destructive cult and cult leader in a nutshell. Self-serving bias. Many of us enjoy unearned privileges, luck, and advantages that others don't. It's easy to tell ourselves that we deserve these things while blaming circumstances when things don't go our way. And of course, in the cults, you get, yes, these cards are for sale. This is not, I'm not getting paid at all for this. But if you go to yourlogicalfallacyis.com, that is where it is advertised that you can find these products. And if you want to drop them a line and let them know I've been pimping their products for them for over 2 years, maybe they might answer my email. But I'm going to keep going anyway because these cards are awesome and they are wonderful little lessons for you guys. So thank you very much for coming around, everybody, and listening to me blabber on here and giving me these great comments. And podcast tomorrow, Catherine Olson, and then Q&A as usual on Sunday. I will shoot that tomorrow. All right, guys. Bye-bye.